Welcome once again to another edition of Strange Planet. 26 years ago. 26. Wow, March 13th, 1997. The Phoenix Lights. Witnessed by at least 10,000 people between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Over a space of about 300 miles from the Nevada line through Phoenix to the edge of Tucson, some witnesses described seeing what appeared to be a huge carpenter square-shaped UFO that actually obliterated the night sky. Some saw 5 spherical lights. There were 2 distinct events, at least. Well, there were sightings, of course, before and after, and we'll get into all of that. The Phoenix Lights. And we should also point out, before we bring my guest on, that you might want to catch, well, it's already aired, but you should be able to see it again. I'm sure it aired last week on the History Channel. It's the History's Greatest Mysteries, Season 4, Episode 5, narrated by the great actor Lawrence Fishburne, and dealing with the Phoenix Lights case. And also, we're also going to talk about a scientific Phoenix Lights study, and we'll tell you all about that as well. Dr. Lynne Kitei is an internationally acclaimed physician and health educator for over 50 years who pushed aside her accomplished medical career to pursue answers for the silent, massive aerial objects witnessed by over 10,000 on March the 13th, 1997. For over a dozen hours and over 4 states, she also filmed these UAP called the Phoenix Lights up close and personal prior to, then during, and after, as I said, what is hailed as the most witnessed, most documented, most important mass UFO sightings in modern history. Dr. Lynne was chief clinical consultant of the Imaging Prevention Wellness Center at the world-renowned Arizona Heart Institute until coming forward in 2004 after 7 years of anonymity and intense research as a key Phoenix Lights witness. Besides appearing on hundreds of national, international TV and radio shows, including Coast to Coast AM, the History Channel, Science, Travel, Discovery, National Geographic Channels, Dr. Lynne's 4th edition of her best-selling Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone book, the award-winning Phoenix Lights Beyond Top Secret documentary, plus the Phoenix Lights graphic novel Activities Coloring book, all available at Amazon.com, and you can visit Phoenix Lights Network at www.thephoenixlights.net for more information, and the links are in the episode notes. Dr. Lynne, welcome. How are you? It's good to see you.
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you, Richard, and your audience, and set the record straight. That was one of the reasons I came forward after 7 years of anonymity, which was very precarious at the time, especially as a physician. But there is so much mis and disinformation out there. As you mentioned, most media picked on the 8 to 10 hour period because that's when most people were outside looking up at the sky at the Hale-Bopp comet, when they also got a glimpse. Are you ready for this one? From 1 to 8 miles wide, according to Peter Davenport, the director of the National UFO Reporting Center, from his data that he's collected for over 26 years. One of these objects, either orbs that seemed to be attached to something, these giant orbs that some people saw detach from the main craft, go out into the environment, and then redock with it later. I mean, we'll get into the technology a little bit, but also craft, actual craft. And this is where it starts to get really interesting, because there was a 12-year study, very meticulous study of hundreds of reports. 2 or more people had to see the same craft. And we're talking gunmetal bottoms, windows. Some people even saw beings at the windows to be in the study. And after 12 years, it was identified that there were 10 different craft. If you go on the GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project, on the Phoenix Lights Network website, and it's packed with information for people to just explore and consider. But certainly consider this, whether it was one craft that could morph into looking different, or the perspective from where the person was standing, or an actual parade. And ultimately, that's what was concluded, because it wasn't just 1 or 2 events. It was many, many events over a dozen hours, starting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And people don't know this. This is really integral data that people should be informed that the mass sighting, and it was seen for weeks and months before, which we'll talk about too if we can get to it, and even years before and centuries before, according to the native cultures, indigenous cultures, especially in Arizona. But on March 13th, 1997, the mass sighting itself began at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, daylight sightings that were seen in Arizona of these UAP, unexplained aerial phenomena. 5 o'clock hour, they were seen by Native Americans in New Mexico. 7 o'clock hour and beyond, they were seen in California. The 10, 11 o'clock hour, there were 2 commercial airline pilots that called into radar to report one of these massive craft was covering Las Vegas. There's a great story to that I tell in the book. And then the sightings continued, and very credible people saw these phenomena continue all the way till 5:30 the next morning, when a Boeing crew, and then the head of the Boeing crew shared this with me personally, was coming into Sky Harbor International Airport, and one of these massive craft was covering their tarmac. So we're talking over a dozen hours, over 4 states at least, because we're doing this study, and we're hearing from people from Utah and Colorado and Texas that also saw the mass sighting on March 13th, 1997. So this was definitely a parade, and there is so much more to the story that people have not heard. One of the reasons I pushed my medical career aside after documenting these phenomena for 2 years prior on 35 millimeter. If you go to the photo page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, you can catch my unique collection of military and university analyzed and authenticated 35 millimeter. They're in the negative. That's the beauty, Richard. They cannot be fudged or manipulated. They're in the negative that they cannot explain to this day, and they can't deny because it's in the negative, that these things were showing up for 2 years prior from my vantage point, up close and personal, and at a distance in the same pictures, in the same spot that I would also catch 2 months before the mass sighting, head on, turning into a V shape. And those pictures are on the website, Phoenix Lights Network website, by the airport. In fact, it was so unnerving that the next morning I called around, and this was January 97, 2 months before the mass sighting, and found air traffic controllers, very forthcoming initially, who divulged that not only did they see what I was seeing, it was over Class B restricted airspace. At 1,000 feet altitude, did not show up on radar. And one of them was a meteorologist and shared that this V-shaped object turned as a unit against the wind, elevated slowly, and then moved in synchrony behind South Mountain, which is just south of the airport. And when I asked, what is it? What was it? There was silence. And they said, beats me. I said, your air traffic controllers are supposed to know what's in our airspace. They ruled out every conventional aircraft, balloons, Chinese lanterns, flares, even skydivers with lights. And we stayed in contact. I continued photographing these phenomena, as other people were, by the way, prior to March 13th. And then, of course, March 13th was the huge sighting. And when I called them the next morning, not only did they share, because it looked like the same exact phenomenon, the same exact location, they confirmed that it was. And the 2 pilots had called it, a commercial pilot, to say, what the hell are these lights over me? And that's significant. I mean, this is over Class B restricted airspace, their tarmac, right above them. And a private pilot who did not come forward until 2017. If you want me to divulge who it was, I'll tell you now.
Yeah, it's a great story. He's a great actor.
Right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Did not come forward. And this is very interesting, which we also get into in our scientific study, because I'm a scientist, I'm a medical doctor, and I wanted to be as scientific as I could with the data to quantify the real term and long-term effects of the Phoenix lights and similar phenomena. And this fellow, along with others, in fact, the psychiatrist MD that's working with me on the study, and I also working with a PhD, who have done other studies, he was a witness as well and did not share it. I mean, nobody said anything. They were coming up from Tucson to Phoenix for a swim meet, and nobody in the car, even though this massive craft was right above them. He was in the passenger seat and got a really great look at it as the arms just were spread so far he couldn't even see the end of them, and nobody said a word till 6 months later when they saw something on TV, which is similar to what happened to this pilot, this private pilot, For 2 years, he forgot about it. He was with his son on approach to Sky Harbor, very close, and his son actually noticed the V shape of lights, and alerted his dad. And he said, "Boy, I better call into the tower," which he did. Totally forgot about it until he walked in, and to his significant other was watching a show on the Phoenix Lights, and they mentioned that pilots had seen it, and he thought, "Whoa!" It was like a Richard Dreyfuss moment. And his UK report, is on the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network website. It's really riveting, actually. And he said, "Whoa!" I mean, he looked at his log and realized that it was him. And it was none other than Kurt Russell, the actor,
Yes.
which was kind of neat, Richard, I have to say, because I was filming it while he was reporting it, which is kind of cool.
Yes. Terrific actor, Kurt Russell, a witness to the Phoenix Lights, along with at least 10,000 others. I wanted to mention, because you mentioned the 35 millimeter camera, and can you imagine what it would have been like had we had cell phone cameras and Twitter back in March of 1997? What do you think what would have changed?
Oh, geez. Well, that's why they can't keep it quiet anymore. And it's really a giant step forward. Not only as the story unfolded, and I'll try to be real brief as I can. It's amazing that after the mass sighting, these phenomena were right over people's heads, rooftop level. Some people said they could have thrown a rock at it. It was so massive, but totally silent and so close. And yet some people saw it take off at blink speed without even dispersing the air. As I mentioned before, some people saw these orbs detach from the main object and then redock with it later, which may be what happened in 95. I don't know why they would be outside our bedroom window, but we actually had a very close sighting of these orbs. And if you look at the pictures again, they're in the negative. While I'm photographing these orbs up close and personal, cloaking, okay, as I'm watching them, in the background, at the distance, in the same spot as 97, are these lines of orbs as well in an equidistant line. Anyway, people also were in awe, because if you look at that GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project, you'll see one of the crafts split in two and shot straight up. I mean, the technology was so phenomenal, and even the propulsion being so massive. We haven't seen anything that comes close. And yet, after the mass sighting, no investigation, not a word from the military or the government, no investigation as far as we knew, no explanation until in May. In May was the first time that a councilwoman, Vice Mayor Frances Barwood, asked innocently, because she got over 1,000 calls from people. She called back 700 of those people, asking, why isn't there an investigation? This went right over people's heads. And people were getting telepathic messages. I hope we have time to get into all that, because that's really, really one of the most important highlights of the Phoenix Lights. And yet there was nothing. And she was plastered. In 97, coming forward was really precarious. I mean, besides the disinformation and the misinformation, people were discredited, they were ostracized, they were laughed at. I was very happy to stay anonymous for 7 years after the mass sighting, because I knew nothing, Richard, nothing about this topic. And for the first time, and I saw this up close and personal, I'm learning thousands of people. So what I had seen, I better learn what's going on here. And once I started looking, and I kept an intricate journal, it just opened up a whole new world to me. I had no idea that other countries are much more open to these things. Belgium, for one, is a model for what should happen. When they had their sightings in the late 80s and 90s, they joined forces with civilians and university and scientists and military to investigate these things. And anyway, I was just blown away, and ended up pushing my entire medical career aside, accomplished medical career, for 7 years, looking.
When did they start to obfuscate and talk about, this was Operation Snowboard, this was a pilot training?
Well, wait a minute. I'm getting to that, because the next thing that happened was a June 18th front page USA Today article that for the first time opened up our sighting to international scrutiny. We were deluged by media overnight. You talk about the internet now. We didn't have social media then. And yet it went viral. Every national morning show, Peter Jennings, Dan Rather, you name it. And after nothing for months, suddenly we get that afternoon an announcement that the next morning, excuse me, the 19th, the next morning, that afternoon, the then governor's Fort Fife Symington was calling an unscheduled press conference to reveal the culprit of the lights over Phoenix, and everybody took it seriously. And here he comes marching out, one of his aides, in a giant alien head costume, and made a mockery of it. But for those that saw it, including myself, it wasn't a joke. Okay. And yet I thought, okay, since I'm going to investigate everything that month after, and we're getting to your point, I called every military base, and I have some of their conversations, which are quite comical, in my book. I didn't tell them details. I would not meet with them, even though they wanted me to. Okay, they wanted to see what I documented. They were just as curious. And I get a call a month later on July 24th from one of the heads of PR of the Air National Guard. And she says, "Oh, Dr. Lynne, I think we know what those lights were back in March." And I was thrilled. And anything logical. She said, "Do you believe that in all these months, nobody ever looked at the log for visiting Air National Guard, and the Maryland Air National Guard was in town sending off military illumination flares in Operation Snowbird," which I found out after in military terms means diversionary tactical maneuvers. Okay, so they may have been sending off flares to divert people away from the true unknowns. And she says, "That must be what some people saw." And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "When was the Maryland Air National Guard in town?" And this is really telling. She says, "March 1st to the 15th. I said, "Were they in town in January?" She said, "Oh, no." I said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Absolutely not." I said, "Well, my husband and I both witnessed and photographed the same exact phenomena in the same exact location, confirmed by air traffic controllers the morning after in January and the morning after the mass sighting, as hovering about 1,000 feet altitude over Class B restricted airspace." And she says, "You never told me that." And then, "And you're trying to tell me," and I'd educated myself to anything logical, including military illumination flares, that they travel, they're dropped from planes on a parachute. They drift haphazardly downward almost instantly. They have huge smoke trails that are illuminated by the flare itself, and they're meant to illuminate the area so that heat-seeking missiles shoot them instead of the aircraft. I said, "And you're trying to tell me that flares, military illumination flares that cannot keep information for more than a couple of seconds or minutes at the most, traverse the entire state in a rock-solid, equidistantly spaced mile-wide V for hours?" And she says, "I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you." Well, I'm still waiting, Richard, for that.
All right. Well, maybe they should call it Operation Snow Job. We'll come back. Dr. Lynne Kitei is with us as we discuss the 26th anniversary of the most documented, most seen mass UFO sighting in history, the Phoenix Lights. Stay with us.
Every new season, we find a reason to improve our lives and our health. And C60 Evo organic edible oils deliver noticeable benefits quickly. A spoonful in the morning delivers energy and endurance all day long. And I sleep deeper and wake up feeling refreshed because C60 ESS60 works. Carbon 60 received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1996 when it was used for industrial applications. C60 Evo's ESS60 is a breakthrough technology upgrading C60 to be safe for human and pet consumption. ESS60 has been called a miracle molecule because of the physical and mental benefits people are enjoying. Their lab has a proven track record of 31 years and thousands of happy customers across the world just like me. So treat yourself, your friends, and your family to C60 Evo and use my link EVRS to get 10% off your first order. Again, my link EVRS to get 10% off your first order.
The 26th anniversary of the Phoenix Lights, March the 13th, 1997. And get on up to the Phoenix Lights Network. And again, the link is in the episode notes. And we could talk for 3, 4, 5 hours, but we just have limited time. But before I forget, I do want to mention the scientific Phoenix Lights study that you've embarked on. Tell me about that and how people can participate.
Okay, thank you so much, first of all, for letting me share this data, because especially with the military and government coming forward in 2017, whether it was a leak or whatever, we know now that they've been studying these phenomena, at least for that long, but much longer than that. It's opened up a whole new world to many people. And what we found with the Phoenix Lights, which is really, I want to get back to the story a little bit because they tried to reenact it. So please remind me about that. But what I found in my investigations, once I started talking to the witnesses, not only did I find out that there was not one person to date, not one credible report of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights phenomena. I can't speak for other things, but I can for the Phoenix Lights phenomena. Yes, there's a very small percentage because it's an ontological shock to some people. They just can't deal with it. So everybody comes from a different background, different upbringing, different belief systems. Some people can't deal with this topic. Some people don't want to, and that's okay. Everyone in their own time. But the vast, vast majority, and we're talking like, 95 and beyond percent, we're in awe, we're in wonder, just curious. I mean, some people got telepathic messages not to worry. I mean, it was just one of those sightings, as massive as this was. And remember that at the time, there was the movie Independence Day. And we're so inundated with threat, and harm, that when you see something that is so massive and so unusual, how are you supposed to react? And children initially were jumping up and down, Independence Day, Independence Day. But as the phenomena got closer, as these giant V and triangle or boomerang shaped objects got closer, a calmness came over everyone, adults and children alike, a connectiveness to the phenomena that after it passed, they wanted to run after it. They wanted their parents to get in the car and chase it. In real time, there was a positive transformation. And long term, there were others that stopped eating meat. They went into the peace movement, the environmental movement, very much like the after effect that happens with people that have NDEs, near-death experiences. And so I thought, well, a number of them also mentioned that they had had near-death experiences as children that was awakened by the Phoenix Lights, including Dr. Brad Evans, a psychiatrist researcher that's working with me on this study. And I did too. And I lay it all out there in the book. And I thought, whoa, I mean, this is not about me. This is about the data. And I thought, geez, if people and others also that had near-death experiences as children, it was reawakened by the mass sighting. How curious is that? And I thought, whoa, could there be a connection between all unexplained phenomena, whether it's near-death experience, out-of-body experience, unexplained aerial phenomena that have a mystical light associated with the experience? And once I started looking, I started finding studies at university, the Omega Project by Dr. Kenneth Ring is like this thick, from the University of Connecticut, or Dr. Bruce Grayson, or Dr. John Mack at Harvard as well. We're finding a connection not only in the experience itself, which I lay out very simply in the book, is so similar, whatever the unexplained phenomena. I started calling them an UP, unexplained phenomena, because the after effect is so positive. The enlightenment, the connectiveness that one feels to the universe and to the earth and to each other just seemed to overtake many, many people. And I thought, whoa, when I got enough together, which we just did this past year, to form a scientific study to really quantitate the data so that we can show and have peer review as well to show that there definitely is not only the hardware, which is important too and mind-boggling, but how it affects people in a very, very personal and deep level when they have an unexplained phenomenon, UP experience, particularly a Phoenix Lights experience. Here are these orbs, and native cultures, I mean, I could tell you such stories, but native cultures many believe that these orbs are spirit world or ancestors coming to give them guidance and comfort and knowledge and inspiration. And I have to admit, I've been inspired by these phenomena, but be that as it may, it's been around for centuries. And when you really look at the data, and we have over 700 people, anyone that wants to join us, if you had a similar experience to the Phoenix Lights, whether it was orbs or you've seen craft, or you heard about the Phoenix Lights. That's the other thing. You don't have to have the experience. If you open your mind and your heart and you learn about it, we have people that saw our documentary, which back here, I took that picture, by the way, that's real. That's from 1 month after 9/11. You tell me what it is, right? There's so much more if you go to the Phoenix Lights Network photo page. But when we're talking about people that just open their mind to learn about it, read the book or whatever, they've also been transformed positively. It's touched people I get messages and emails, and anyone that's interested in taking a peek at it, taking a peek at the scientific journal. It's really fun, totally anonymous, totally confidential. Once you're in there, we don't know who you are. We don't have your IP address, nothing. We want people to be honest.
Right.
And
It's a questionnaire. It's a questionnaire, a survey.
It's a questionnaire, and it's short. It's only less than a half an hour, but we're getting such incredible feedback, Richard, that is really confirming that the Phoenix Lights phenomena and phenomena similar to the Phoenix Lights are really touching one person at a time, and the outcomes are just riveting when we're looking at the findings. And hopefully, in the next year, we'll be able to publish them. But in the meantime, if you're interested, go to the Phoenix Lights Network website or the Phoenix Lights Network Facebook page and scroll down. You'll see the link there too. But Phoenix Lights Network website is very easy. Just go on the landing page. There's a triangle there, and right underneath, you can either enter the website, and under that is the link that goes directly to the study. And we invite everyone out there, especially if there are people out there that were here, because many people have moved or passed since 1997. If you're out there, and we have had, now that we've been talking about it, many people get in touch with us that were here during the mass sighting. Please join us in this effort to really scientifically compute the data, and so we can get it out there so people know that it's not only the hardware, but there's somebody driving these things. And that's why, it's time to get this out in the open, address it, accept it, and study it so we can move forward and not only find out who's driving these things, but move forward in our own evolution as well.
Can you share some more of the telepathic messages people were receiving as these craft, or whatever they were, these lights went overhead?
Absolutely. We have people actually that were out, they were in Mensa, very credible realtors who were out in a field that was being built. They had stakes in the ground, and they estimated that this craft that they saw was over 2 miles wide. They saw gunmetal on the bottom. They saw windows with beings at the windows. And even though they couldn't really see what they were, they knew they were looking at them as much as they were looking at them. And they got the message, don't worry, we're not here to harm you. That was the main thing. That don't worry about this. We're not here to harm you. And if anything, they touched people at such a deep level. I mean, that's really the significant about this, that it really did change people and wake them up to the fact that we're not alone in the universe.
Any spontaneous healings reported?
We do have some people that have said that they've, had healings. I mean, this is something that we talk about, ask in the study as well. And I don't want to divulge too much because we're still gathering the data. But yes, there's some riveting findings. I have to tell you. Well, I'll share for you, Richard. I'll share a couple of really cool ones. What blew me away personally, and also the other colleagues that are working on this, is that there were many people, and we're talking, close to 60% of people that had the Phoenix Lights experience. Once they had an experience like that, and it's happened with near-death experiencers too, okay, we'll start having other psychic experiences and seeing other things, and really being open and aware of what comes before them. And what's really interesting is that, it's many people that took this questionnaire have shared with us that they are seeing beings. I mean, real beings, different kinds of beings, as well as being on craft. I mean, that blew me away. And they have vivid memories of this. And for the most part, just about all the people that are being in this study. And yes, there are a few that, just can't deal with it, or for whatever reason, religious or upbringing or whatever. Other than them, they're welcome. Just as the native cultures do. In fact, the day before our mass sighting, on the Navajo Range, they had a sighting, and these oars were going around. They thought it would be big news. These oars were going around in circles, and they're so used to it. This happened in Loop, L-E-U-P. P. They brought their lawn chairs out and just watched it for an hour. I mean, they're very open. And another interesting story. I don't believe in coincidence anymore. Once somebody reads the book, which is in its fourth print, by the way, I didn't want to write another book. The first book is so important. Every word is there for a reason. I squeezed the best of what the most credible data that I found in the 750-page journal down to 230 pages, and have just added chapters as our governor. Now, that's another story. I wanted to get back to 3 years after the mass sighting. And I do want to get back to the native cultures, because that's really, unless you want me to finish that first.
Yeah, let's we were talking about healings, and then we were talking
Well, 6 months before the mass sighting, I was invited, which is ironic. I have dedicated my life's work since 1976 to community education of vital health issues. I work for NBC and USA Cable and have my own company, Health Education Learning Programs, to produce video and workbook curriculums for the classroom, and on vital health issues. And I was invited to the Gila Bend, Gila, Gila Bend Indian Reservation, which is in between South Mountain, which is just south of the airport, and then a few miles back is the Estrella Mountain Range, and very sacred ground. And they had one school, and I helped the principal. They don't talk to outsiders. But after the mass sighting, I noticed from my voted data that these phenomena kept popping up right in that area where South Mountain and the Estrellas intersect. So I called him up, and I said, did anybody happen to see strange lights on March 13th? And he started to giggle. And I said, is that funny? He said, oh, are you kidding? We've been looking up at them for centuries. We call them sky people, light beings. I had never heard of that. And he starts telling me, not only do indigenous peoples worldwide very welcome these other intelligences, but that's how the Estrella Mountains got its name. Gateway to the stars. It means star in Spanish. And there are petroglyphs, drawings, centuries years old, on the mountains there, of the same exact thing that my husband and I saw outside our bedroom window, of 3 orbs in a triangle or pyramid formation. And they do believe in that area that there's a gateway or portal in that area. And certainly they feel that these phenomena are healing and they welcome them. So to answer your question on that, and other people have also mentioned that they feel that they've been healed of certain things from their experience with the Phoenix Lights. The other thing that happened is right after right before the 3rd anniversary of the Phoenix Lights. People don't know this outside of reading my book or going on the website and seeing the news report about this. The then Councilwoman Frances Barwood, Vice Mayor of Phoenix, was running for Secretary of State to get answers for the lights over Phoenix and asking for a reenactment, which was brilliant. Okay.
Sorry, Lynn, can I just jump in? Because I wanted you to tell that when we come back. I have to take a quick time out. We'll come back and we'll get to the reenactment with the flares and the warthogs and all of that. It's right up there with swamp gas and, what else can you compare it to? I mean, flares. Seriously? All right, back with more of my conversation with Dr. Lynne Kitei. Stay with us.
November reminds us to be thankful and focused on boosting our radiant health before winter. And I use a potent remedy that's improved the quality of my life and deepened my sleep as well. I take C60 Evo olive oil every morning, and I have a lot more energy and mental focus all day long. My workouts are easier, and I have a lot more endurance. If you're into competitive sports, this is a game changer. Health is our greatest wealth, and Pura C60 ESS60 really works. ESS60 is a breakthrough technology delivering the carbon-60 miracle molecule for humans and pets. Check out the C60 Evo holiday gift collections for everyone on your list. They make amazing skin, lip, and hair repair serum that deliver noticeable results quickly. C60 Evo's lab has an impressive track record of 31 years and, of course, my personal recommendation. You deserve the best remedies on earth, and so do those you love. Buy direct from the lab and upgrade your life today. Use my code EVRS to save 10% off your first order. Again, my code EVRS and save 10% off your first order.
And we are back with Dr. Lynne Kitei, internationally acclaimed physician, health educator, and her 4th edition available at Amazon of her best-selling Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic Discovery that we are not alone. And there's also, of course, the the award-winning Phoenix Lights Beyond Top Secret documentary, and even a Phoenix Lights graphic novel activities coloring book, all available at Amazon. And please, it's in the episode notes, the Phoenix Lights Network. You can click on there and participate in this anonymous questionnaire survey about your experiences. All right, so the reenactment. In an effort to try and, this is right up there again with swamp gas and a weather balloon from Roswell. They tried to blame this whole thing on flares that had been dropped by the Air National Guard, these warthogs that were, I guess, at the Barry Goldwater Range, was it?
Well, they kept changing their story, Richard. That was what was interesting too, because supposedly, okay, just to go back for a second here, at 3 a.m., there was a call to the National UFO Reporting Center, Peter Davenport, the director, from an alleged crewman who said that 2 F-15s were sent out from Luke to intercept one of these massive craft right over central Phoenix. And as they got close, the lights dimmed and then the entire thing blinked out and disappeared, and freaked out one of the pilots who he said he helped out of his aircraft. And then Luke was on lockdown afterwards. So they were very well, this is about 8:30. They were very well aware of what was going on. So whether they sent off flares or not, the interesting thing is the story kept changing. Once this all came out, I mean, Luke said that they sent out flares, and David Monson said they had to release them from their aircraft because they can't keep them in there. I mean, the story just kept changing, and the times kept on changing. But here was Barwood asking for a reenactment. Now, if it was military, okay, I mean, I'm open. I'm a healthy skeptic. I'm open to any explanation. The logical, I want to see it, okay? But shame on them. I mean, for denying it for months, for going right over people's heads. But okay, show me. Well, 3 Air National Guards came in town. I believe it was California, Michigan, and New York, if I'm not mistaken, to show everyone the Phoenix Lights. This is 3 years later, right before the 3rd anniversary. Talk about a joke. If you go to the news page and scroll down a little bit, you'll see a box there that has AZ family. You'll see exactly what they did. They tried to make a triangle. It was upside down, fell apart immediately. One of them even fizzled out, had huge smoke trails, just what flares do. And not one person, not one. I mean, if there was one person that said to me they saw that, any kind of flare characteristics, I'd say, okay, they sent off flares. I haven't heard of one that actually saw the flares. But nonetheless, that put the nail in the coffin for the flare theory. To date, the Phoenix Lights have never been reenacted or explained, yet they continue to appear worldwide. If anybody can get to the History Channel, and by the way, our documentary is free now on Tubi, if anybody has Tubi, but there was a wonderful History's Greatest Mysteries last week, one of the best exposés on the Phoenix Lights that is streaming on the History Channel. History's Greatest Mysteries with host Lawrence Fishburne. I recommend highly that people take a peek at that. It's really terrific. And then the graphic novel, as you mentioned, I'm working on a curriculum as I was for my health programs for about 10 years now. It's really hard to get into the classroom, but I compiled the best of what I had gathered in 160 pages of incredible story about the Phoenix Lights. It's called Phoenix Lights, UFOs and Crop Circles, Activities, graphic novel, coloring book for all ages. I wanted to give something out there for teachers to be able to do in the classroom, which they are, and parents and grandparents to do with their kids and their grandkids. It is packed with 80 crop circles to color with, we talk about the real ones versus ones that are made by man, as well as iconic pictures. And it's just a real fun thing. So I recommend people looking that up as well. When I have them at conferences, I can't keep them in my hand.
Okay, I want to, because time is tight, I do want to go back to Governor Fife Symington, of course, who made a mockery of the whole thing.
Okay, that's the next thing.
He totally,
yeah. Yes, thank you for bringing me back and talking about that, because that's really important. Because right after the 10th anniversary, it's amazing how the story unfolded and continues to unfold. But right after the 10th anniversary, for whatever reason, our former governor, Fife Symington, he was no longer governor, who mocked the sighting in '97, came forward and disclosed bravely, I must say, because he was an awarded military pilot, that he actually witnessed one of these craft. And in his own estimation, not only was it definitely not flares, but it was a craft. And also in his own words, which I found poignant because by then I had heard from other countries that they relate to these phenomena as otherworldly. And that's the word that he used. It was otherworldly. So that was a giant step forward, Richard. I know that you appreciate, when you're talking about politics, and I don't get into politics or religion, but when you're talking about a former governor actually coming forward and disclosing that he saw this phenomena and that it was not from here, it was
And
otherworldly.
expressing regret that he made a mockery of it as well. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, so who knows the pressure he was under at the time to do that. But it was great that he came forward. And then, of course, when Kurt Russell came forward in 2017, that was another great step forward because it just lends the more credible people that come forward. And that was one of the reasons I did come forward. If I can lend a credible voice so that people actually look at the data, then I've done my job.
the U.S. government recently established something called ARROW, the All Domain Anomalous Resolution Office. And I understand that two of the early witnesses they've called because they want to gather data. They're talking to Robert Salas and they're talking to Robert Hastings about UFO incursions over nuclear installations. Wouldn't it be
Yes.
great
And
if you were to
yeah.
get a call from ARROW to sit down and talk to them about the Phoenix Lights? I mean, is there any action behind the scenes maybe to make something like that happen?
Actually, I'm open. My time is limited. I'm open to helping. I mean, that's why I came forward to helping get the data out there, the critical data, and that's why we're doing the scientific study. And yes, I applaud Roberts for coming forward. There's nuclear bases here, and there is definitely history of these phenomena showing up over these bases. And the story for anybody that doesn't know, this was 30 years, almost to the day, of our mass sighting in Montana. There were two separate nuclear bases with nuclear silos, very deep in the ground. And there were these orbs and UFOs at the gate, and suddenly everything went offline, and there's no off switch. Okay, so it freaked everybody out down there, including Robert Salas, who tells the story so vividly. They didn't know what to do, and suddenly 3 hours later, everything went online and started again. Now, when you think, I mean, what could have happened? Okay, if there were intelligences beyond that were coming here and turning off our nuclear bases, what is the message there? What is the message there? But nonetheless, nothing malevolent happened, which to me is another point that just contributes to whoever is behind the Phoenix Lights phenomena is benevolent. I mean, it changed people forever, and we're quantifying that now, and soon we will have that to publish and let people see how these Phoenix Lights touch people. I get so many emails, and I welcome people, by the way, and on the homepage of the Phoenix Lights Network website, you can contact me directly. And I certainly, look, as a scientist, I wanted to be as credible and pragmatic as I could with the data. As a physician, I wanted to let people know that they're not alone. If you just tell one person, it's very healing. It's cathartic. And certainly I know as an experiencer what that feels like. And then certainly as an educator, it was important to get this data out there. But certainly if you just want to tell me your story, I take confidentiality as a physician very seriously. It is cathartic to just write it down and start ruminating about it. And even people, and this has been studied as well with the free study and also with some of the therapists that I know worldwide, that even if somebody has an experience that isn't quite positive to them, with therapy and with talking about it and sharing it with others and hearing other people's stories, and Opus, if you ever heard of Opus, is a place where people can go to do that. It really transforms the experiencer to a positive place. And again, I've had people tell me just reading my book has done that for people, which is just, I mean, whoa. I mean, what could you wish for in a project other than to help people learn and grow and move forward?
All right. So again, the study, the scientific study on the Phoenix Lights happening. It's anonymous. It's a questionnaire. You go to thephoenixlights.net. Again, the link is in the episode notes, www.thephoenixlights.net. And it's a very easy website to navigate. You just click on the triangle, enter, and then you'll see a link. I think it says Survey Monkey or something like that. And that takes you right to the questionnaire. And it'll take you about half an hour. And this is all very valuable data. And you would be making a major contribution to the scientific study. Dr. Lynne, great to see you again.
You too, Richard. Thank you so much for letting me share. And once we do get the data compiled and we have some peer review, and I would be wonderful if we can come back and share that with your audience as well, because we are finding some interesting feedback from this. So I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Maybe we'll do it on Coast as well, coast to coast.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Dr. Lynne.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe at strangeplanetpodcast.com.